In India, the world's largest democracy, secularism is a principal tenet of the Constitution. It provides that every Indian is allowed to preach, practice, and propagate any religion that they believe in. The pages of India's history will tell you that this country is the motherland of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. However, many religions like Christianity, Islam, and others have found ardent believers here for centuries. Though most of India remains largely tolerant, history has seen a number of violent incidents unleashed against the minorities, especially if they are poor and defenseless. It is mostly women and children who bear the brunt of this oppression, from isolation and the onset of disease to sexual assaults and severe psychological trauma. They are subjected to an array of horrifying experiences. Children stripped of their innocence and women reduced to trophies. The happenings here since December 2008 are an example of the patterns of communal hatred unleashed against poor and vulnerable Christians in Kandhamal, a district in the Indian state of Orissa. Kondhs, a tribal community, and Panos, a Dalit community, primarily live in Kandhamal, along with other communities. Lakshmananda Saraswati, a Hindu priest, has been working in the Kandhamal district since the 1960s, claiming to spread the Hindu culture and saving the tribals from Christianity. In actuality, he seems to have been spreading hatred to root out Christianity. The extreme left activists, also known as the Maoists, seem to have warned him many times for his unacceptable actions. On the 23rd of August 2008, the Maoists gunned down Lakshmananda Saraswati along with 4 of his followers. Despite the Maoists owning up to the killings, the Hindu devotees and followers were informed that this was carried out by the Christians. These rumors spread like wildfire. The Swami's corpse was taken in procession for 120 kilometers. All along its way, the mob ravaged the churches, institutions, and attacked the homes of Christians. The orgy of violence lasted for at least a year. The violence has left 50,000 people homeless and bereft of their livelihoods. Several villages have been reduced to ashes, churches lie desecrated, and the people have been forced to flee to the jungles seeking refuge. In this film, you will meet the women of Kandhamal. You will hear tales of horror born as a result of the communal violence. They tell their stories in the hope that other women like them may never fall prey to such violence again. Pulkito Nayak, Kanakareka Nayak, and their children fled to the forest as the mob arrived to destroy their village. The mob caught up with them, demanding that Purkito profess Hinduism. Unwilling to comply with their demands, he was tortured and killed while his family could only watch.
କାହାକାନାରେ ମୁଁ କେସ୍ କରିଥିଲି ଏପାର ଦେଇଥିଲି ଥରେ ମୋତେ ପୁଲବାଣୀ ସେମାନେ ଡାକିକିରି ମୋତେ ବିଚାର କଲେ ଯିଏ ଯିଏ ମୋର ୱାଚମେଣ୍ଟକୁ କିଏ କିଏ ହାଣି ଦେଇଥିଲେ ମାରି ଦେଇଥିଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କ ନାଁରେ ମୁଁ ସାକ୍ଷୀ ଦେଲି.
My husband was killed by them. I witnessed against the people who killed my husband. They were sentenced to 7 years, but came out in 2 days. I have 2 daughters. I cannot move out freely. I'm afraid they'll kill me. My children cry every day for their father. My elder daughter is a witness to the murder. Her life is also in danger. I have made her stay in Delhi. We were walking to the neighboring village during the riot. The mob got us and took us to a mutt that afternoon, and they wanted us to convert. My husband begged and pleaded. They hit him with sticks. They tied a rope to his neck and dragged him along. My husband begged them not to kill him in front of the children, but they killed him in front of me and my children. They cut his neck off and he died. They poured kerosene and burnt him. I took my children and went to many houses asking for shelter. Everybody was scared. Finally, one person let me stay. Later, I moved to the relief camp. I filed a complaint in the police. I cremated my husband's body. Now I'm displaced and I don't know what to do.
Rashmi was an energetic young girl, well known in the village for her talents. The angry mob entered her house and found her hiding inside. Within seconds, they drenched her in fuel and set her ablaze. But she has survived to tell her tale.
मेरा नाम अनिंदिकाल है. मैं कंधमाल डिस्ट्रिक्ट से हूँ. 2008 अगस्त 26 में हमारे गाँव में जो हुआ था.
I was studying in the school during the violence. My parents refused to go to the jungle for refugee. My father said, if we get killed in the forest, our bodies won't even be buried. He said, if death comes, let's die in our own house. The mob attacked our house. They broke open the doors and beat my father. They hit my mother on the head. My parents were on the ground. They spotted me. I stood there crying. Some men from the mob shouted, burn her to death. I started praying aloud and called out to God. They poured kerosene on me and set fire. I ran outside with the fire on me. I poured water on myself. I sat there crying. Later, I was taken to the hospital. I spent many months in the hospital and I was treated. I could never forget the happenings of that day.
Julie Nayak was 25 years old when misfortune struck in the midst of the violence. While fleeing with her 2 children, one in each hand, she lost balance. Her 2-month-old baby fell from her grip. The child's head hit a rock, killing him instantly.
It was around 9 in the night. Suddenly, a crowd of people rushed into our streets with guns and knives and weapons. They shouted many slogans and started chasing people away and broke houses. It was raining very heavily that night. Me and my husband with my 2-month-old baby fled to the jungle. While climbing up the hill, I slipped and fell down. My child dropped down from my hands and fell on the ground. When I lifted my child and saw, I knew he was no more. My husband and I sat there and cried for hours. In the morning, we walked to a relief camp nearby. We buried our son there. After that, we remained in the camp for a month. Since my husband was a pastor, we were warned that he will be killed. Now we have moved to this house. Before the violence, I used to walk everywhere freely. Now I'm afraid to move out of my house. I don't want any woman to go through what I have gone through.
Minu Nanthi Digal feared the communal riots and was rightly protective of her children. However, She was helpless when it came to saving her 22-year-old son. While on his way home, he was caught by the mob and shot in his ribs at point-blank range.
My son was 22 years old. We were all inside our house. Violence broke outside our streets. The situation was very bad. My son was returning home. He got caught by the mob. They shot him. He died. He was the only child earning in our family. He built this house for us. After his death, we fled to the jungles and returned back after a long time. I miss my son. My other children cannot replace his absence.
Praful Kumar Nayak was a village leader. He was respected for his fair judgments and was a trusted peacekeeper. During earlier riots, he lodged a complaint with the police about miscreant fundamentalists. In return, he was murdered for his bravery.
During the first violence, all our houses were broken and looted. We had no place to stay, and we had just one dress to wear. My husband represented our village and lodged a FIR in the police. During the second violence, they wanted to take revenge. There were 9 of them. They took my husband away. I ran for my life. They had lots of weapons. They had knives and sticks. They killed my husband brutally. A few village people also witnessed it. Few informed the police, and the police arrived and helped me recover my husband's body.
Minatu Mitansi Singh was only 13 during the conflict. She was displaced and taken to Mumbai to work. She managed to find a way back home. Now, she wants to return to school and continue her education.
ମୋ ନାମ ମିନତି ଉଠାଣ ସିଂ ଆଉ ମୁଁ ସପ୍ତମ କ୍ଲାସରେ ପଢ଼ୁଥିଲି ପରୀକ୍ଷା ଦେଇନଥିଲି
After the communal riot, I couldn't go to school. We were all displaced. My education was stopped. My father was attacked on the head during the violence. He can't walk and function like before now. He was the only earning member in our family. Even my sister's education was stopped. I was promised a work in Mumbai. I worked in Mumbai as a housemaid for a while. I acquired a brain malaria there. The doctors advised me to go home. I returned home. My mother now works in the forest and brings us food. I'm still getting treated for my sickness. I want to continue my studies, but I can't afford paying for a hostel and studying.
23-year-old Mukti Latha Paricha wanted to have her baby in a public health center in the following week. But she had to flee to the jungle with her fellow villagers as they sought shelter from the violence. The very next day, she delivered her baby right there in the jungle.
The mob entered our village and broke down everything. People were beaten up. The mob had a lot of weapons. Everybody ran for their lives. I was pregnant at that time. I ran into the forest with another girl. I kept on moving. I fell down near a river and I remained there for some time. And then we continued walking. I stayed in the forest for 3 days and 3 nights without food or shelter. I gave birth to my son in the forest. We had nothing with us to cut the cord even. A woman gave me her sari and helped me cut the cord with a stone. I had no food for me and my baby. We went to a neighboring village from there and remained there for 17 days. I had no medical help. I still get traumatized when I think about those days. After getting back to our village, I was taken care of and my health gradually improved.
My son is also healthy now. I just hope no woman ever has to go through those sufferings again. And I wish people began to stop hating each other and peace comes here.
Janara Nayak lived in a camp for the displaced. A member of the Central Reserve Police Force had promised her his hand in marriage. On receiving the dowry, he deserted her, leaving her alone in the midst of violence.
ଜାନୁଆରୀ 5 ତାରିଖରେ ଦେଖା ହେଇଥିଲା 7 ତାରିଖରେ ପ୍ରପୋଜ ହେଇଥିଲା ଯେତେବେଳେ ପ୍ରପୋଜ କରିଥିଲେ ମୁଁ ସେତେବେଳେ ତାଙ୍କୁ କହିଥିଲି ମୋ ତରଫରୁ ସେଟା
My parents and I were living in a relief camp after the violence. The CRPF police force was stationed in our town at that time. I was studying in class 10. A member of the police force approached me and he said that he wished to marry me. I told him to talk to my parents and I walked away. He found my home and came and spoke to my parents. My parents were happy to get me married to a policeman. My education was stopped and I was given in marriage to him. My parents gave him a huge amount as dowry for the marriage. Immediately after the marriage, he went back to his camp. He met me 2 times after that and he never came back. He went away with the money. The police officer said they don't know where he is. It took us a while to realize that we were exploited. I have no future now. I don't know what to do.
Ranjita, a helper in the Carmelite convent, was going about her chores when the events unfolded. A witness to the atrocities committed against the people around her. The trauma of the experience still haunts her 3 years later.
With a 22 years old girl who was affected by trauma during the right time 2007, 24th December. Around 800 number of people, mob came and attacked the convent, Baliguda, Mount Carmel, and they were with a lot of instruments to attack and destroy the things. And Ranjita girl was along with her sisters hiding under the staircase. The mob pulled this sister and Ranjita and they wanted to rape them. But some good-hearted mob people told girls and sisters, please escape, don't stand here. And they escaped from the front gate and went to the streets, and good-hearted person took them to their house and hid them and took care of them. And they were taken care nearly 4 or 5 days. Then Ranjita girl from Badaga village, Baliguda parish, was very badly attacked by trauma. She was shocked because 800 people had many different kinds of instruments, and they were like, the sound was like devil song coming and like killing them and destroying everything. So that shock was in her. Now she has come back and she is along with us staying, and she had that trauma, and whenever she sees the persons, she used to recognize some of them. And she was telling, don't entertain these people inside this campus, because these are the people who harmed us, who attacked us. so again they will kill us. That fear was in her. But slowly we told, you face the people and accept them as they are, as we are staying here and living with them, you also be with us and come out of it.
Anuradha Deagle, a charming 20-year-old, was keen on becoming a teacher. She was always ready to help the village children study. The mob arrived unexpectedly one night, leaving her physically and sexually assaulted. She now lives in anonymity and shame, unable to overcome what happened to her.
My family was displaced during the first violence. I was living with my uncle and aunt in another village. Few people came to me and asked me to convert. After 3 days, a mob of around 20 people came and took me to the forests. They beat me up and asked me to convert. Then 4 of them started abusing me. I begged and pleaded, asking them to let me go. They were very violent and cruel. They raped me. I could recognize most of them. I begged them to kill me there. I didn't want to live after that. They left me there and went away. My uncles came later and rescued me. Seeing my state, they thought it's better for me to die than to live again. Afraid of shame, we didn't do anything about the incident. I can't go back to my village. I'm living under a few good people's care. I feel so isolated. I hope this never ever happens to any other girl.
Kandhamal violence is one of the worst communal violence in the history of India and also for Orissa. Though most of the times this kind of violence has been taken place, but this violence has taken away the life of many people. Our people have lost their houses, their things have been looted, and since it is 2.5 years today, there is still the people remain suffering, and also the people can never forget the violence that has hit their mind, their body and their soul. And the little ones have lost their future, and also they have dropped out from the schools, and where our adolescent girls have been also prey to the women trafficking. And today, as we have seen here, the houses are still broken, lying down here, and the people are without shelter, food and clothing, and they remain here not like a human beings, but living as an animal, and where we see the administration have failed to see the needs of our people today.
By enlisting the poor and undereducated to lash out against the equally poor Christians, religious fundamentalists have left indelible marks not only on the lives of women and their communities, but on the secular fabric of the country. Whether through education or intervention, what is imperative in Kandhamal is the creation of a just and peaceful society. Because despite differences in customs and traditions, all religions indisputably share a common belief, one that encourages believers to help their neighbors enjoy peaceful and fulfilling lives.